I'm Ellen Stellian, the Midlife Empowerment Coach, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to Cathy Warnes. Cathy has spent her 28-year career as a speech pathologist, helping people set and achieve goals around improving their communication. But 11 years ago, shortly after turning 40, she found herself needing help. After going through her own health struggles, including early menopause, osteoporosis, weight gain, insomnia, and lack of energy, we can relate to all of those. Cathy became a certified health and life coach with a specialization in habit formation. She is passionate about helping women improve and maintain their health as they age. Her membership, Simple Real Midlife, teaches women how to take simple and realistic steps in their everyday lives to form healthy habits that last. So Cathy, welcome. I've been so looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, thanks, Ellen. It's great to be here.
Yay. So I know that the title of your program is 7 Ways to Master Health Habits, and we are all dying to hear what those 7 ways are. So I'm going to let you start talking about those 7 ways, and I'm sure I'll chime in and see if anybody's joining us to chime in as well.
All right. Absolutely. Yes. I'd love for this to be interactive. I'm going to go through the 7 ways to master habits. So there's a lot of information out there about lifestyle changes that we can make as we age. And I felt like I had all the books. I bought all the books and there's all the information, but I got really overwhelmed as to how do I actually take what they're all saying. Like, I know I need to exercise regularly. I know I need to meditate. I know, what I need to do to lose weight, but how do I actually do it and maintain it in my everyday real world life? So my business is keep it simple, keep it real for a reason. And so we're going to be very simple in how we talk about forming these habits. And then we'll go through and give examples. And I want to say that some of this is not going to be new, but I find that all of these 7 ways are equally important. And to be honest, before I went through my training, I was one of those people that was like, no, just give me the stuff. I'm going to push myself and do it. And some of these tips were really new to me. And to be honest, I wasn't quite sure I believed it would work until it actually worked for me and how I've seen it work for other women. And sometimes it's the simple things that are going to have the biggest impact. So I'm going to run through them. I got my little note cards here. So the first is to be specific when we're setting our goals. The second is to start small. This is a big one that I'll talk about. We don't have to stay small, but we're going to start small. Number 3 is keep track. Again, seems simple and obvious, but there's so much behind that. Number 4 is make it pleasurable for you. And ladies, this can actually be done. We don't have to just keep pushing ourselves, trying to do something we don't enjoy. Number 5 is that accountability. And it's to set up accountability to others first, and I'll explain why that is. And then we can be accountable to ourselves. And so when I say setting up accountability to others, I don't mean that we're going to show up for others because we're really good at that, but learning how to show up for ourselves. And sometimes we need to be accountable to other people for showing up for ourselves until we can actually trust ourselves to show up for ourselves. One of my clients said it best. She said, I want to learn how to keep promises to myself. So that's a big one. This one I didn't give enough attention to either until I realized how much it helped me grow and stop self-sabotaging, which is to forgive ourselves. So I'll talk about that. And we all know the stories we tell ourselves when we can't, I always say I'm going to lose weight or exercise or stop eating sugar or whatever, and I can never stick to it. So we need to forgive ourselves and celebrate the small wins. I used to not really give myself any credit until I was going to reach that end result. Like, no, I just have to keep putting my head down until I am doing this regularly. And so all of this comes back to actual physiological changes in our brain that help us form these habits. So there's a reason that New Year's resolutions don't work or never worked for me, and I suspect with a lot of us. And so if it's okay, I'd like to just go through these
Yes.
and some examples and break it down and dive in. So number one is be specific. So a lot of times we'll say like, I want to work out more, or I want to meal plan more, I want to eat healthy, or I want to start meditating. But we need to be very specific about what that end goal is going to be. So it might be, you know, I'm going to meditate 4 times a week, or I'm going to meal plan 3 times a week. What do you want your end result to be? And I think even when we talk about like, oh, I want to lose weight, you know, even saying like, I want to lose 10 pounds. I mean, for me, I even just flip that and say, well, what do you know to be true about what might help you lose weight? I always tell my clients like weight loss ends up being a side effect of showing up for yourself. So being specific, like what, instead of this, like, I need to lose 10 pounds, what do I know to do? Like, oh, if I eat slower and chew my food, if I, you know, have healthy meals prepared, what's one thing I can do that's specific that if I do it over time will help me lose weight? So no more of this, I need to X more, but let's actually put a number to it. You know, I want to work up to doing this 4 times a week or 3 times a week about what we want. So really being specific.
Are you a proponent then of like the whole SMART goals thing?
Measurable.
Realistic, all that.
Yeah, realistic, measurable. What do I actually want to see happen? Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's be specific. And that's really nothing new to a lot of us, right? Like, yes, I can say specifically what I want to do as my end result, which then leads us to how we're going to start. You know, some people will say, start with the end in mind. And I say, don't. You need to start small. So for example, if the experts are telling us, you know, it's going to benefit my body to work out 4 times a week, and I'm not currently working out at all, then I need to start small and know my baseline. Otherwise, we end up pushing ourselves. Like, and I've done this. I don't know if we've done this. I've done this. I was this all or nothing person. Like, I'm going to start eating plant-based every day and every meal will be healthy. And, you know, I go from 0 to like 360. So I'm going to go get the book. I'm going to plan all the meals. I'm trying to make too big of a change too fast. And our brain can't handle that. It will self-sabotage because our brain says, wait a minute, you're not the person that eats 5 healthy meals a week or works out 4 times a week. You know, why are we trying to go from 0 to doing all of that? It's not about that all or nothing, because we want to get the habit loops in our brain going. And so we want to start small and recognize that. So we're not going to stay small. And I think that's what people mistakenly think. Like, okay, I want to work out 4 times a week, but I'm not doing it right now. Well, then maybe in the next 7 days, I'm going to say, I'm going to work out 1 time. I'm going to start small. And once I do that and I achieve it, that's what starts that pleasure loop. I'm not going to stay small at only working out 1 time a week, but I'm going to start small. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. I mean, there's a whole, I don't remember which author or writer or whatever said, you know, like, if you want to get it with just the one thing. And if you can just, because otherwise it's overwhelming, you know, It can be super overwhelming to have this big goal in mind. And then it just feels like so overwhelming that you may not even start.
Yes. Or we feel like we have to keep pushing ourselves to do it because it's that all or nothing. So we start small before, you know, when I'm always talking with my clients about, you know, starting something new, like even exercise, like just do 2 times a week for several weeks. And then when you're achieving that, that's going to help that habit loop. So we're going to start small, not stay small. And I used to think, well, what's the point? You know, I have osteoporosis of the spine. And I used to think, well, what's the point if I'm only going to lift my weights 1 time? I need to do it 3 times. And so I went all in after I got my diagnosis. And it's like, oh man, okay, I'm not the person that currently lifts weights, but I just saw, you know, my spine is like an 80-year-old or whatever. I got to get going. And I pushed myself for a while, but then it just fell apart. And then we tell ourselves that story about how we can't stick with it.
Right.
So the next thing, and again, it seems simple, is to keep track. And you might be thinking like, okay, well, yes, I know I can remember if I've worked out 3 times that week. But if we keep track, it helps us stay on top of our progress and gives us that positive feedback. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's even, a Post-it note in your kitchen with Sunday through Saturday. And if I just put a check that I did that 10 minutes of Pilates, then I can see my progress and it's rewarding to me. And because these things these healthy habits we're wanting to start are not habits, we're just likely going to keep going through our day. And if we don't keep track, we might get to the end of the week and go, oh, I was going to do that 3 times this week. I'm already on day 4. So I better hurry up and do it before day 7 because we just kind of went back to our old habits. So keeping track of when
it's not about being perfect either, because believe me, I love the check marks, right? I mean, I love nothing more than checking off something that's done. And, but if you miss one check mark, it doesn't, like, for so many of us, it means, oh, scrap the whole thing. Fine, I'll start next month, right?
Yes.
I mean, it can just so easily derail us.
Yes. So Ellen, what a good point, which brings us back to the start small, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, I said I'm going to do this 2 times. So if we set ourselves up for success, and that's part of, the coaching and the habit formation, then we're going to have a goal that meets all of these 7 criteria. So you're exactly right. Yeah. So we want to keep track. And here's the other one that was a shocker to me. It doesn't have to be hard. Being healthy doesn't have to be hard. So make it pleasurable for you. So a lot of times people will say, like, I know I should run, or my neighbor runs, or my neighbor does Pilates, or my neighbor goes to the gym. Like, personally, for me, going to the gym is not pleasurable. It might be pleasurable for you. For me, doing Zumba is pleasurable. So finding out what is pleasurable for us and not someone else. I've read all the books about this person ate this way and started this plant-based or whatever, or did this exercise. Yeah. If it's not pleasurable for you, then you're just setting yourself up for a tough climb. It doesn't mean we're never going to do anything like, oh, I don't like lifting my weights. It's not pleasurable, so I'm not going to do it. But we get creative and associate something pleasurable with it. So as I mentioned, I have osteoporosis, and yeah, it's not like my favorite thing to do to lift my weights. So I can get creative and associate pleasure with it. And, I like to be outside. So I will take my hand weights out and, lift them outside, make it pleasurable, or associate it with something pleasurable. Even if that's me kind of, as I'm lifting them in my mind, thinking, okay, good. When I'm 70, it's going to be pleasurable, but I can stand up out of my chair instead of have a walker or whatever it might be. I'm going to, attach that to it. And if we're doing these other things, if we're setting specific instructions, if we're starting small and we're keeping track, it is going to be pleasurable. And so every time we do those things, like, oh, I'm going to do Pilates, and I do the 10 minutes of the 45-minute DVD, and I did that, I want to focus on, wow, it's pleasurable, I did that. And so my brain is going to want to repeat that, because we repeat what is pleasurable. And we all tend to see that in the things we wish we could let go of. Like, I love chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. And when I was going through my early menopause and pre-diabetes and whatever, empty nest, all those things we go through, it was very pleasurable to eat the chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. So my brain just kept repeating that until I was doing it unintentional. So that's another reason we want to start small and go through all these steps so that it's pleasurable.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, because I have to admit, I don't enjoy working out, and I really do not enjoy lifting weights, which is so important for us as we get older, especially as women, to keep that bone density strong. But what I did, which is exactly what you're talking about, is I'm only allowed to watch it's so bad, I'm not going to say the name, reality TV show when I'm lifting weights. And so for me, I've now associated, that's a pleasure for me. Lifting weights now is associated with my really bad reality TV show, which to me is really, really good, really juicy stuff. So I lift weights and watch at the same time. And so that's been a really great way for me to kind of take something that I feel is drudgery but necessary, and associate with something that it's kind of like candy. It's like
Yes.
enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, Ellen, that's wonderful. And another thing that you mentioned is we tend to get into that mindset that it's either or, either I watch my show or I lift these weights that I don't want to do.
Mhm.
And you just showed how it can be both and. I can
Yes.
lift these weights and watch my show, and it can be pleasurable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a shout out to Barb Monson, who's joining us. Thank you for being here, Barb. She says, keep track when it's not a habit yet. I love that.
Yeah, because our habits, I mean, we want these things to be habits, but they're not. And I think when we need to be intentional about it. Otherwise, we're just going to default back to our usual routine. And then we get mad at ourselves like, hey, why can't you do this? Well, because we were going about it the hard way. Yeah, thanks so much. So the next one is accountability. And so I mentioned in the beginning, it's having that accountability to ourselves. And then, dare I say, we can be trusted to show up for ourselves. So it's that accountability. We would not tell a friend we're going to meet her at the corner to walk and then just not show up.
Right.
But we're really good at saying these things that we're going to do and then easily putting it aside, or like, I didn't tell anybody that I'm going to start lifting weights 3 times a week. No one's going to know. I didn't tell anybody that I'm going to try to stop after 1 bowl of chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream instead of 2. So no one's going to know. And so having that accountability really helps us learn how to show up for each other. We're all smart, capable women that have shown up for other people in our lives, and constantly. That's a habit, but it might not be a habit to be accountable to ourselves. And I'm not talking about, and Ellen, I love you brought it up. I'm not talking about perfection, and I'm not talking about accountability in a like competition way. That's not going to last. Right, so my neighbor and she always does these goofy ideas with me. Some of my ideas are good, some not so much. And one year I came up with, we're going to do this Jillian Michaels DVD. This is before I was a habit trained coach. Yeah. I didn't know any better. And I'm like, we're going to do that every day for 30 days because that's how we're going to, that's what we're supposed to do. And so she was all in, let's do it. And so then we would text each other. It was like, I did mine today. Did you? Oh, no, I didn't. And it was in this like competition place rather than like, oh my gosh, I have to hurry up and do it. And it wasn't associated with pleasure. And it was always out of this like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if I don't do it? Right. I can't let her beat me or whatever. Right. And for a while that got us through, but it wasn't pleasurable and it didn't last. And all I got was a sore knee out of the Jillian Michaels thing. And it doesn't become a habit then, I'm assuming. Exactly. It wasn't pleasurable. We went all in too fast. In fact, I remember our kids were involved in some social thing. It was some event, I think, through our church. And it was just like, oh, did you come home and do your Jillian Michaels after that? Right. So it was like goodness. That push, and then when it was all, we couldn't wait for it to be over. Like, when is that 30 days going to be over? Because we're pushing ourselves. So I'm talking about that lovingly holding someone accountable. And if we set ourselves up for success in the beginning by starting small, by keeping track, I always end a coaching call with my clients that what's the minimum you can do pleasurably, not what do you want to end up with. And so knowing that we're going to get on that call or that they're going to post in my group, hey, I did this, just that someone's going to know. And it's going to be positive can help people. Like I was coaching someone who wanted to step away from her computer a couple times throughout the day to deep breathe or meditate. And I said, okay, how can we set you up for success to do that? And we'd gone through everything. And she said, well, I know when we get on our call next week, you're going to ask me if I've done it. And again, if we don't do it, then this is a new thing too. We forgive ourselves. And we get curious as to why it didn't happen, not judgmental. But I want to go back to the accountability for a second, because once we have that accountability, and we need to give ourselves credit. It's not like, oh, I'm never going to be able to exercise on my own or do something unless I've got a call with someone. A lot of women, and Ellen, you've probably experienced this too, will go through some coaching programs, learn how to show up for themselves, and then they can keep promises to hell.
Yeah.
And that in their real world, everyday lives. And that's really what we want. And so then they're good for a while, or they might come back when they want to start a new habit.
Yeah. That's very well said. Thank you. Yes.
And then, so the forgive yourself. So we all get into those stories like, oh, I'm not the person that can exercise 4 times a week, or I've started a diet so many times, or I can't lift my weights. And, and this was me, like, oh my gosh, someone's telling me I have prediabetes and someone's telling me I have osteoporosis. I have all the information and I still can't do it. And then I get down on myself and start thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to end up, just in 10 years from now, really debilitated. Well, let's just step back and forgive ourselves, because these aren't habits. And if for some reason we didn't set up ourselves for success and we tried to go like, I'm going to just start doing Pilates 4 times a week, and we didn't do it, then let's just get curious, not judgmental. Like, well, what got in the way? Let me just step back and be objective like we can with everybody else in our life. And just not keep replaying that narrative over and over and over. So forgive yourself. What got in the way? A lot of times it's, well, I'm not used to doing this, or maybe I didn't keep track, or someone needed something, or I didn't realize this was happening in my schedule. And then we get curious, we've stepped back, we've gotten objective. We're not attaching any like, oh, I'm so bad, I can't, work out, and we forgive ourselves.
Yeah, I love the idea of getting curious, and just instead of beating ourselves up, and we're very good at doing that, is just kind of saying, okay, something's not working here, like not assume that there's something wrong with me, but maybe there's something wrong with the way I set this task up. It was too much too soon. It just, the way I planned it didn't work out. Like, what needs to change in the setup in order to allow me to be successful, rather than I'm such a failure, it's so embarrassing, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. That doesn't help anybody. If anything, it just spirals us downward, and it really keeps us from achieving those goals we set up for ourselves.
Absolutely. And as you know too, whatever story we're telling ourselves is what we're just going to look for information to validate
Support
that.
it.
Like, oh, I can never do the full 45-minute Pilates DVD.
Right.
Because I said I was going to do it and I didn't. Then we're just going to look for ways, like, I'm just not the person that can do that. So forgive ourselves. Absolutely. And then the last one is celebrate our small wins. The small wins. So it's those small steps. So kind of taking the Pilates example of, I know the experts are saying if I work up to consistently doing 4 times a week of Pilates, then I'll see these benefits. But in the beginning, it might be, okay, I did 10 minutes. Like, I did 10 minutes of the Pilates DVD, and to celebrate that, because that literally, and I used to think this was just like, oh, that's nice, touchy-feely, happy talk. But it literally, and the speech pathologist in me loves this, it literally is something in our brain that is going to attach to those habit loops. And those habit loops are not going to be easily formed when we're trying to do it likely the old way that we do. So we celebrate, I did the 10 minutes of Pilates. Yay, I can do this. It's pleasurable. I'm excited about it. Then that habit loop is starting to form. Just like, yay, I'm eating this chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. Right. It's pleasurable. The habit is starting to form. So celebrating those small wins, because it's the small wins that are going to get you to where you want to go over time.
And when you say celebrate, do you mean actually do something to celebrate, or just recognition, just saying I did it? And,
that is such a great question. I think just celebrate that you did it, and being able to validate it, that like, I did this. I can show up for myself. I can say I'm going to do something and do it. And I don't need an extra reward or something, because then it's like I'm trying to prove myself to myself all the time. And not that we never reward ourselves or whatever, that's fine. But just knowing like, I did that. Hey, I did Pilates. I said I was going to do it, and I did it. And so one of the things before we end our coaching call that I'll ask my clients is, how can we set yourself up for success? And what's the minimum amount that you can do? And sometimes they'll end the call and they're like, well, I really want to do it 4 times. I really want to do it 4 times. Well, how about you commit to doing it once? And if you do it more, that's great. And then the first thing they can say on our follow-up call is, you know what? I did it. I did it that one time.
Yeah.
And then I felt so good about it. Actually, later in the week, I did it again. But hey, I'm just celebrating that one time.
Yeah. Yeah,
really
make it
is what-
achievable. I mean, if it's not
Absolutely.
achievable of a goal, if you might really, be motivated after a call with you and be like, yes, and I'm going to, once, no, I'm going to do it this many times. But then there's a higher risk that you actually, life will get in the way and you may not be able to do it. And so, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So let's set ourselves up for success from the beginning and doing
Yeah.
those minimums. And that was a total mindset shift for me. Like I was not about the minimum. I was about the all or nothing. And it's just the minimum, like I'm going to make one healthy meal. I'm going to meal plan one time.
Yeah.
And then I did it. And then the next week, I'll maybe do it one time again, or maybe I'll do it 2 times. All of our habits, the things that are unconscious that we just do, have started to form that way. We didn't, we can push ourselves for a while and not even realize we're pushing ourselves. And then other things happen. So for me, I was pushing myself to do all these things, whether it's start this business or, do whatever it was. And then I didn't realize my health was starting to deteriorate. Like it didn't seem obvious, but over time it did.
Yeah.
And I wasn't recognizing any of those small things. It was just like, let's go, let's do it. I have to fix this now.
Right. And are you a proponent of the whole 30 days to form a habit kind of thing? Is that, you've studied this, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that can work sometimes, but it just depends on how we're setting ourselves up, right? Great question. Like my Jillian Michaels thing, like
Right.
I did that for 30 days. Is it a habit? No, because I was ready to just give it up.
Right.
But if I do something and it's pleasurable, so I think the 30 days can work. Like in 30 days, I can get myself to working out 4 times a week. I feel like if I'm doing, all of these other things. So that time frame, I think can be easy to get stuck in. And if we're just like, what are we doing in that 30 days? Are we pushing ourselves or how are we getting there? So I think it can be done, but it depends on if we're doing all these other steps correctly. And they're all equally important.
Okay.
That's the point I want to make, because it's like, I just watched this live. I'm going to do this. Forgiving yourself, setting up accountability. That's equally important as keeping track, celebrating your wins, and making it pleasurable. If we try to sidestep one of those, it's just going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, well, you have shared so much valuable information for everybody, and I love that it's all grounded in, the power of habit formation and, really research based. So I think that's really good feedback and advice for everybody. And I love how you really make it, small and achievable, and just, and orient yourself, set yourself up for success. I think that's such a powerful message. Now, I would love to hear a little bit more. I know you are inviting people to come to your website, keepitsimple.keepitreal.com, which I will put in the comments. What can they find there?
Sure. So you can find a lot of free resources. It just depends, we're all at a different place in our journey. And so I have a 40-minute training that's free where I go over a lot more detail and some specifics in terms of, I went through early menopause and, the prediabetes. I'm not, obviously a healthcare provider, but I talk a little bit about habits around that. That's a 40-minute training where I go into a lot more detail. I have an email that people can join where I'll just send quick tips. I have a blog on there. There are several blog posts if people want to choose that. And if people wanted to actually take a bigger step of action, I have a membership that people can join where I run courses. Like there's a 6-week one on sleep, there's one on movement, where we as a small group are setting ourselves up for habits from wherever we're starting, whether it's I don't work out at all to I work out, 3 times a week. And everything in that membership is based on these 7 steps.
Wonderful.
So people can go to my website and just pick and choose what, if anything, they want.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I would love to encourage everybody to do that. And again, I will put the website in the comments, and really appreciate, Cathy, you sharing your expertise and wisdom with our viewers today. And I encourage everybody to go back and watch this again. There's just so much information here. So, you know, I definitely a lot to learn and a lot to put into practice. So thank you for making it so doable for all of us. And certainly everybody, if you enjoy these videos, come back, we'll have them again. I'm shooting for weekly. So thanks so much, Cathy.
Oh, and thank you, Ellen. This is about empowering women, and I love watching these, and you're doing a great job of that in this space. So we're all in this together.
Thank you. See everybody soon.
Bye, everyone.